Commander Park Taman stood in the observation deck of Defense Station Sejong, his hands pressed against the cold glass as he watched the final preparations below. The massive railgun stretched out before him like a mechanical dragon, its barrel extending 300 meters into the darkness of space. Every wire, every circuit, every electromagnetic coil represented 5 years of his life. Today, all of that work would either prove humanity's genius or expose their foolishness. Dr. Han Minji rushed into the room, her tablet glowing with last-minute calculations. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. She had not slept in 2 days. "The power distribution is stable," she said, her voice tight with nervous energy. "We can proceed." Captain Lee Donghyun entered behind her, his military uniform crisp despite the long hours everyone had been working. He was the station commander, responsible for 200 souls living in this orbital facility. "All personnel are secured," he announced. "Earth Command has given final authorization. We are clear to fire." Taman nodded slowly. This was the moment. Humanity's first true weapon capable of striking targets across vast distances with devastating power. The tungsten slug sitting in the firing chamber weighed only 10 kilograms, but when accelerated to 30% of light speed, it would hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. The target was a decommissioned satellite floating 2,000 kilometers away, already evacuated and marked for destruction. "Begin the countdown," Taman ordered. The control room below erupted into coordinated activity. Engineers called out readings. Screens displayed energy levels climbing toward maximum. The station's main reactor hummed louder, feeding incredible amounts of power into the railgun systems. Minji watched her tablet, eyes darting across numbers that changed every second. "Capacitors at 90%, someone called out. "Magnetic. Field alignment confirmed. Target lock established." Taman felt his heart pounding. This was more than a weapons test. This was humanity announcing to the universe that they were no longer helpless children, playing in their small corner of space. For decades they had been alone, wondering if anyone else existed among the stars. Now they had the power to defend themselves, to reach out and touch the void with force if necessary. "Capacitors at 100%, Minji reported. "All systems ready." Captain Lee stood beside Taman. "Make history, Commander." Taman took a breath. "Fire!" The railgun discharged with a flash of blue-white light. There was no sound in the vacuum of space, but the entire station shuddered from the electromagnetic pulse. The tungsten slug vanished, moving so fast that human eyes could not track it. Sensors recorded its path as a brilliant streak across their displays. 2.3 seconds later, the target satellite exploded in complete silence. The detonation bloomed like a flower of metal and fire, debris spreading outward in all directions. The control room erupted in cheers. People hugged each other. Someone started clapping, and soon everyone joined in. Taman allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. Humanity had built a weapon that could defend their home system against any threat. But as he watched the celebration, Minji suddenly grabbed his arm. Her face had gone pale. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "What do you mean?" The test was perfect. She held up her tablet, showing him readings he did not understand. "These quantum fluctuations, they shouldn't be here. Look at this subspace distortion. It's like we tore something. Tore what? I don't know. But these readings are spreading outward. The energy signature is propagating through dimensions we can barely detect." Before Taman could respond, every alarm in the station began screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the observation deck. The celebration below stopped instantly as engineers rushed back to their stations. "Captain," one of the sensor operators shouted, "we have an unidentified object entering Earth orbit." Lee was already moving. "Where did it come from?" I don't know, sir. It just appeared. No engine signature, no approach vector. It's just there." Taman and Minji followed the captain to the main control room. The central hologram display showed Earth below them, and approximately 30,000 kilometers away something hung in space. It was crystalline, geometric, and utterly alien. The object rotated slowly, reflecting sunlight in strange patterns that hurt to look at directly. "What is that?" Lee demanded. Nobody had an answer. Humanity had never encountered alien life. They had listened to the stars for a century and heard only silence. Now, minutes after firing their railgun, something had appeared. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer said. "It's not radio. It's coming through our quantum Ansible array. That's impossible, Minji breathed. That system was experimental. Nobody else should know it exists. Put it through, Lee ordered. The control room's speakers crackled. What came through was not words, not music, not any sound they recognized. It was pure mathematics. Equations appearing on their screens in rapid succession. Minji grabbed a stylus and began working frantically, translating the mathematical language into something comprehensible. After 2 minutes, she stopped. Her hand was shaking. It's a message, she said quietly. 3 words: cease, dismantle, forget. Silence filled the control room. Taman stared at the alien probe on the display. They want us to stop. To destroy the railgun. Why? Lee asked. I don't think they're telling us, Minji replied. This is a command, not an explanation. More alarms began sounding. The sensor operator looked up, his face white with shock. Captain, we have multiple objects appearing around the moon. 7 distinct ships. They're massive, sir. Each one is larger than our biggest space station. The hologram updated, showing Earth's moon surrounded by vessels of impossible size. Each ship was different, representing technologies and designs that were utterly foreign. One looked organic, like a living creature made of metal and crystal. Another was angular and brutal, all sharp edges and weapon ports. A third seemed to shimmer as if it was not completely solid. We're receiving another transmission, the communications officer announced. This one is in multiple languages, including English, Chinese, and Russian. They're requesting immediate contact with Earth's leadership. Taman looked at Captain Lee. The military officer's jaw was tight, his mind clearly racing through protocols and procedures that had never been designed for this situation. First contact. It was happening. And it was not friendly. Open a channel to Earth Command, Lee ordered. Priority Alpha. Tell them we have a situation. Minji was still studying her tablet, her fingers moving across the screen with desperate speed. Taman, look at this. I've been analyzing the subspace distortion from our test fire. It's still expanding. It's going to reach neighboring star systems within hours. What does that mean? She looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear. Whatever we did, whatever signal we sent out when we fired that railgun, we just announced our presence to every species within 200 light-years. And based on how fast these aliens arrived, they were waiting for exactly this moment. The crystalline probe pulsed with light, and another message came through. This time, Minji translated it instantly. Her voice was barely audible. They're asking if we understand the gravity of our mistake. They're saying we've violated the Edict of Contained Violence. They're saying... She paused, her face crumbling. They're saying we've called something from the dark. Something ancient. Something that hunts civilizations that use kinetic weapons. Taman turned back to the window, staring at the railgun that had been his life's work. In the space of 10 minutes, humanity's greatest achievement had become their greatest mistake. The stars around them suddenly seemed darker, more threatening. Somewhere out in that darkness, something had heard them, and it was coming. The conference hall in Geneva had been built to host international summits between nations. Now it hosted something far more significant. Ambassador Kang Hyun-soo sat at the human delegation table, his hands folded carefully to hide their trembling. Across from him sat representatives of 5 alien species, each more impossible than the last. The one who spoke first called itself a translator for the coalition. It looked almost humanoid, but its skin shifted colors like oil on water, and it had too many fingers. When it spoke, the words came from a device floating near its head rather than from any mouth. You are children playing with fire, the translator said. Its voice was calm but cold. You have no understanding of what you have done. Yoon Ji-won, the xenolinguist sitting beside Kang, leaned forward. She had spent 3 days learning to interpret the subtle color changes in the translator's skin, which conveyed additional meaning beyond words. Right now, those colors showed deep concern mixed with anger. We are willing to learn, Kang replied carefully. But we need to understand. Why is our railgun technology forbidden? One of the other aliens moved. This one was entirely mechanical. A construction of metal and crystal that stood 3 meters tall. When it spoke, every human in the room felt the words as vibrations in their chest, because kinetic weapons at relativistic speeds create tears in subspace. These tears emit a frequency, a call, a beacon that attracts the devourers. The devourers? Kang repeated. The mechanical alien gestured and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a star system much like Earth's own. Planets orbited peacefully around their sun. Then something entered the display from the edge. It looked like a geometric structure, all angles and impossible mathematics. As the humans watched, the structure approached the innermost planet and began to consume it. The planet did not explode. It simply came apart, piece by piece, and those pieces flowed into the structure, making it larger. This was the Kelvar system, the mechanical alien explained. Population 6 billion. They developed relativistic kinetic weapons 8,000 years ago. Within 3 months, the Devourers arrived. Within 6 months, the entire system was consumed. Every planet, every moon, every artificial station. Nothing remained except the star itself. The hologram shifted, showing system after system. Each one displayed the same horrific pattern. A civilization advances, builds powerful kinetic weapons, and the Devourers come. The structure grows with each consumption, converting matter into more of itself. Choi Sung-ho, the military strategist, spoke up from his position further down the table. But we fired only one test shot. Surely that's not enough to attract these things across interstellar space. The translator's colors shifted to dark red. You do not understand. Subspace is not like normal space. Distances are different there. Your single shot created a distortion that has already reached 40 star systems. The Devourers exist in dark space, the regions between galaxies. They feel these distortions across vast distances. Even now they are responding to your call. How long do we have? Kang asked quietly, unknown. Sometimes they arrive in weeks, sometimes years, but they always come. Always. Another alien spoke, this one looking like a creature made of flowing water somehow held together without a container. The Galactic Coalition has existed for 2 million years. In that time, we have learned hard lessons. One of those lessons is this: kinetic weapons must be forbidden. We guide younger species toward energy-based weapons, plasma, and laser technologies that do not tear subspace. You've been watching us, Yoon Ji-won said suddenly. All this time, you've been observing Earth. Yes, the translator confirmed. We watch all developing civilizations. When you reached nuclear technology, we began monitoring closely. We expected you would develop fusion weapons, antimatter perhaps. These are dangerous, but do not call the Devourers. Instead, you took a different path. You built railguns. Choi Sung-ho stood up, his face flushed with anger. So you would have us destroy our only effective defense? Leave ourselves vulnerable because you fear these Devourers? There is no defense against the Devourers, the mechanical alien said flatly. Every civilization that has tried to fight them has died. The only protection is prevention. Do not call them in the first place, and that's not acceptable, Choi shot back. Humanity will not disarm based on fear. We've spent centuries refusing to bow to threats. The translator's colors flashed bright warning yellow. This is not a threat. This is reality. Your pride will kill not only your own species, but potentially draw the Devourers deeper into this region of space. Other civilizations will die because of your arrogance. Kang raised his hand, trying to calm the situation. Please, we are not refusing outright, but you must understand our position. We have only just reached out into space. We are alone as far as we knew. This railgun represents our ability to protect ourselves. Asking us to destroy it without proof, without understanding, is asking us to trust blindly. The water creature rippled. What proof would satisfy you? Do you wish to see the Devourers for yourself? By the time they arrive, it will be too late. They cannot be stopped, only avoided. Yoon Ji-won had been studying the hologram recordings carefully. She noticed something and pointed. These civilizations that were destroyed, they all fought with conventional means. Energy weapons, missiles, nuclear devices. None of them used railguns against the Devourers themselves. Why not? The room fell silent. The aliens exchanged glances, or whatever passed for glances, among their various species. Because railgun technology is always dismantled before the Devourers arrive, the translator finally said. That is our protocol. That is how we have survived. So nobody has actually tried fighting them with the very weapons that attract them, Yoon continued. You've spent 2 million years running from this threat, never attempting to understand it or defeat it. The mechanical alien's voice became deeper, more resonant. 23 species have tried to fight. All were consumed. Your weapons are insignificant against the Devourers. Kang saw an opportunity. But those species were alone. You said yourself that the coalition has existed for 2 million years. Have you ever fought the Devourers together? Combined your technologies and strength? More silence. The aliens seemed uncomfortable, their various forms of body language all conveying the same message. This was not a discussion they wanted to have. The Coalition's purpose is preservation and guidance, the translator said carefully. We avoid threats, we do not confront them. This has kept us alive. Then you're cowards, Choi said bluntly. The atmosphere in the room became immediately hostile. The mechanical alien rose to its full height. The water creature began moving violently within its invisible containment. Even the translator's colors went dark and angry. But Kang held up both hands. My colleague speaks harshly, but perhaps there is truth in his words. You ask humanity to destroy our weapons and trust in your methods, but your methods are based on fear and avoidance. We are different. We face our fears. We fight our battles. Then you will die, the translator said coldly. Maybe, Kang agreed. Or maybe we will win. We have surprised you before. You never expected a species to develop railguns at our technological level. You underestimated human creativity and determination. Perhaps you also underestimate our ability to survive. The aliens conferred among themselves in ways the humans could not fully understand. Lights flashed. Strange sounds echoed. The air itself seemed to vibrate with unspoken communication. Finally, the translator turned back to the humans. We will offer a compromise. You may keep the railgun for now, but you will share all technical data with us. We will study it together. Understand why your design creates subspace tiers. Perhaps we can modify it, reduce the distortion, and you will allow Coalition observers on your station and in your research facilities. And if the Devourers come before we find a solution, Kang asked, then we will evacuate who we can and mourn your passing, but we will not stay to die with you. Choi looked ready to object, but Kang silenced him with a gesture. This was the best deal they would get. We need to consult with our government. You have 24 hours, the mechanical alien said. After that, we will take action ourselves. We will not allow your weapon to continue endangering this region of space. The meeting ended. As the aliens departed through transportation methods that seemed to bend space itself, Kang sat back in his chair, exhausted. Hyun Ji-won looked at him with concern. Can we really work with them? She asked. We have to try, Kang replied. Because if we can't, humanity's first contact with alien life will also be our last. Outside the conference hall, crowds had gathered. The entire world knew about the meeting. Billions of people waited to hear whether humanity would be forced to disarm or be allowed to keep their newfound strength. Kang would have to address them soon, convince them to accept alien oversight, trust creatures they had only just met. But first, he needed to speak with the military and scientific leadership. Because regardless of what the aliens wanted, Choi had been right about one thing. Humanity did not bow easily to threats, and if the Devourers were coming, they would need more than one railgun to face them. They would need an arsenal. Lieutenant Kim Sora adjusted her fighter's course as she completed another patrol circuit around Neptune's orbit. 3 months had passed since the aliens arrived, and things had changed dramatically. Earth's sky was now dotted with alien vessels, their strange designs mixing with human stations and satellites. The railgun on Defense Station Sejong had been partially dismantled, its core systems removed and stored, while Coalition scientists studied them. But Sora knew something the public did not. Captain Lee Dong-hyun had secretly preserved complete blueprints and key components. If needed, they could rebuild the weapon within days. It was treason against both Earth's government and their alien partners, but Lee had convinced a small group that humanity needed insurance. Sora's console beeped. She expected another routine check-in from command. Instead, her screens filled with emergency alerts. All fighters, this is command. We have a situation. Report to designated coordinates immediately. She fired her thrusters and accelerated toward the rally point. Within minutes, 24 human fighters had gathered in formation. Their commander's voice came through, tense and urgent. We have an anomaly at the edge of the system. Something big. Coalition forces are already moving to investigate. Sora felt her stomach tighten. She had been dreading this moment since the Geneva summit. Is it them? We don't know yet. Stay sharp and await orders. On Earth, Dr. Bae Minho was having the night shift of his life. The elderly astronomer had been watching the skies for 40 years, and he had never seen anything like this. His instruments were detecting gravitational distortions coming from deep space, beyond the Kuiper Belt. The readings made no sense. Whatever was approaching was massive and moving far faster than any known object. He grabbed his phone and called Park Taemin directly. The commander answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. "This better be important, Minho." "It is. Something's coming. Something huge." 15 minutes later, Taemin was in the observatory, staring at Minho's data. The numbers were terrifying. The object was the size of Earth's moon and decelerating from near light speed. No known technology could move something that massive so quickly. "Call everyone," Taemin said quietly. "Get Dr. Han, Captain Lee, everyone on the station. It's happening." By dawn, every government on Earth was in emergency session. The coalition representatives confirmed what everyone feared. The Devourers had arrived and they were coming fast. The aliens began evacuating their personnel from Earth orbit. Their massive ships, which had seemed so permanent and powerful, were now fleeing like birds before a storm. On Defense Station Sejong, Captain Lee Donghyun gathered his senior staff. Dr. Han Minji stood beside him, along with Park Taemin and a young engineer named Shin Yuna. The younger woman had been working with the coalition scientists, learning everything she could about subspace physics. "They're running," Lee said bluntly. "The aliens are abandoning us. Can we blame them?" Minji asked. "Everything they've shown us suggests the Devourers are unstoppable. But they've never tried to stop them," Yuna spoke up. Her voice was quiet but firm. "They've always run. What if there's another way?" Taemin looked at her. "What do you mean?" Yuna pulled up a hologram showing complex mathematical equations. "I've been studying the Coalition's data on subspace distortions. The Devourers aren't attracted to kinetic weapons themselves. They're attracted to the specific frequency that railguns create when firing. It's like a dinner bell in their perception." "We know this already," Lee said impatiently. "But what if we could change the frequency?" Yuna continued. "What if instead of attracting them, we repelled them?" Minji stepped closer, studying the equations. "You want to modify the railgun to produce an inverted signal?" "Exactly. The Coalition never tried it because they abandoned kinetic weapons entirely, but we still have the technology. We could rebuild the railgun with quantum field generators that invert the subspace signature." "That's theoretical," Taemin said. "We've never built anything like that." "We've never faced extinction before either," Yuna replied. Lee made his decision. "Do it, get the components out of storage. We have maybe 72 hours before that thing reaches the inner system." "I'll need help," Yuna said. "You'll have everyone on this station," Lee promised, "and I'll get us more time." Hours later, Kim Sora found herself back in her fighter, this time leading a squadron toward the outer system. The Coalition fleet was still evacuating, but a few brave alien vessels had agreed to help delay the Devourers' approach. It was not a battle they could win, only time they could buy. She saw it on her long-range sensors first. The Devourer construct looked exactly like the hologram from Geneva, but seeing it in reality was completely different. It was geometric perfection and absolute wrongness combined. The structure pulsed with dark energy, and smaller pieces broke off from the main mass, each one the size of a building. "Those are probes," her tactical officer reported. "They're spreading out, scanning everything." "All fighters, weapons free," the squadron commander ordered. "Hit those probes before they reach the Kuiper Belt objects." Sora locked onto the nearest probe and fired. Her missiles streaked through space and impacted the geometric shape. For a moment, she thought she had destroyed it. Then the explosion seemed to reverse and the probe absorbed the energy, growing slightly larger. "Negative effect," someone shouted over the comm. "Conventional weapons aren't working." More fighters attacked. Lasers, kinetic rounds, everything they had. Each attack was absorbed. The probes continued their advance, and behind them, the main Devourer construct kept coming, growing larger as it consumed asteroids and debris in its path. A Coalition vessel, the organic-looking one from Geneva, fired something different, a beam of purple energy that seemed to phase in and out of reality. It hit one of the probes and the geometric shape stuttered, flickering like a bad video signal. For 3 seconds it seemed to be working. Then the probe adapted, and the purple energy was absorbed just like everything else. Sora watched in horror as one of the probes caught a Coalition ship. The vessel tried to flee, but the probe moved impossibly fast. When they connected, the ship began to come apart. Not exploding, not burning, just disintegrating into its component atoms and flowing into the probe. "All fighters fall back," the commander ordered. We cannot stop them. Repeat, we cannot stop them. The retreat was chaos. More probes appeared, dozens of them, then hundreds. They spread through the outer system like an infection, consuming everything they touched. Zora pushed her fighter to maximum speed, racing back toward the inner planets with the probes gaining on her. She made it through Neptune's orbit with seconds to spare. Behind her, the Kuiper Belt was being systematically harvested. Every rock, every chunk of ice, everything was being converted into more devourers. On Defense Station Sejong, the crew worked without rest. Shin Yuna directed the reconstruction of the railgun, while Dr. Han Minji built quantum field generators from scratch. Park Taemin coordinated with Earth's industries, rushing materials and components up to orbit. Captain Lee monitored the Devourer's approach. They had less time than expected. The construct was accelerating, growing faster as it consumed more matter. It had already passed Uranus and was approaching Saturn. "We're not going to make it," Minji said, exhaustion clear in her voice. She had been awake for 40 hours straight. "We have to," Yuna replied, her hands steadily assembling delicate quantum circuits. A message came through from Earth. Ambassador Kang's voice was calm, but strained. "Defense Station Sejong, this is Earth Command. We are ordering full evacuation. All personnel are to abandon the station and retreat to Earth immediately." Lee looked at his crew. Every person there was a volunteer. They all knew what staying meant. "Earth Command, this is Captain Lee Dong-hyun. Request denied. We are not abandoning our post. Captain, that's a direct order. Court-martial me later. Right now we have work to do." Sejong out, he cut the communication and turned to his crew. "Anyone who wants to leave, the shuttles are ready. No judgment, no shame. But I'm staying." Nobody moved. Taemin smiled grimly. "Guess you're stuck with us, Captain." The Devourers reached Saturn. The beautiful rings, billions of years old, began to dissolve. The construct moved through them like a shark through water, consuming, growing, adapting. It would reach Mars in 36 hours, Earth in 48. Yuna worked faster, her fingers flying across controls. The modified railgun was taking shape, but they needed one crucial component: a quantum field generator powerful enough to wrap around the projectile and invert its subspace signature. The problem was nobody had ever built one before. "I have an idea," Minji said suddenly. "The coalition ships that are still here, they use quantum drives. If we could salvage one," Lee was already moving. "I'll contact them. Keep working." An hour later, a coalition vessel approached the station. The mechanical alien from Geneva made contact. "You are fools to stay, but your foolishness is brave. We will give you our quantum drive core. Use it well." The massive component was transferred to the station. It would destroy the alien ship's ability to escape, leaving them stranded to face the Devourers. Taemin asked them why they were helping. "Because you are right," the mechanical alien said. "We have run for too long. If you die trying to fight, at least you die free. That is worth." The Devourer construct filled their screens now, a geometric nightmare that grew larger every hour. It had consumed 3 of Jupiter's moons in the past 6 hours, and the gas giant itself was showing signs of atmospheric disturbance as the probes began harvesting its outer layers. Every scientist on Earth was watching helplessly as centuries of astronomical study proved worthless against this ancient threat. Park Taemin had not slept in 3 days. His eyes were red and his hands shook from too much coffee and too little rest, but the railgun was finally ready. The massive barrel had been completely rebuilt with quantum field generators running its entire length. The tungsten projectile sat in the chamber, wrapped in a cocoon of exotic particles that flickered in and out of normal space. Dr. Han Minji ran final checks on her systems for the 100th time. The math was sound. The theory was solid. But theory and reality were often very different things. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," she told Taemin. "The quantum field is stable. The inversion pattern is locked in. When we fire, the projectile should create a subspace frequency exactly opposite to what attracted the Devourers." "Should," Taemin repeated quietly. "Should," Minji confirmed. "I won't lie to you. This has never been tested. We could fire and nothing happens. Or worse, we could make things worse." Captain Lee Dong-hyun stood with them, looking out at the approaching threat. How much worse could it get? That thing is already here to kill us all. Shin Yuna joined them, her tablet showing the latest calculations. The main Devourer construct has entered the asteroid belt. The probes are spreading out, creating a sphere around the inner system. They're not just harvesting anymore. They're surrounding us. Trapping us, Lee said grimly. There's something else, Yuna continued. I've been analyzing the Devourer's movement patterns. They're not random. There's intelligence there, strategy. They're specifically targeting our defensive satellites and communication networks. They know we're here and they're isolating us. On Earth, billions of people watch the sky with growing terror. The news showed footage of the probes reaching Mars, the red planet's moons disappearing in minutes. Some people fled to underground bunkers. Others gathered in churches and temples. Many simply sat with their families waiting. Ambassador Kang Hyun-soo was in the United Nations Command Center, coordinating with world leaders. The remaining coalition ships were at the edge of the solar system, unwilling to flee but unable to help. They broadcast messages of regret and farewell, promising to remember humanity's courage. They think we're already dead, Kang said to Choi Sung-ho, who stood beside him monitoring military channels. Maybe they're right, Choi replied, but we're not dying quietly. Kim Sora was back in space, leading whatever fighters remained operational. They could not stop the probes, but they could slow them down. Her squadron used hit-and-run tactics, attacking then retreating before the probes could adapt. It was desperate and probably pointless, but it gave the station more time. She watched another probe absorb her missile attack and grow larger. This is insane, her wingman said over the comm. We're just feeding them. Then we make them work for every meal, Sora shot back. She targeted a different probe with her lasers, forcing it to divert attention from a civilian evacuation ship. All fighters, protect the refugee vessels. Make these things come through us first, the probes obliged. 3 of them changed course, accelerating toward the fighter squadron. Sora's tactical computer screamed warnings. The probes moved faster than should be possible, defying physics as they closed the distance. Break and scatter, she ordered. Her fighter dove toward Mars, using the planet's gravity well to gain speed. 2 probes followed. She led them on a desperate chase through the orbit of Phobos, barely staying ahead of their reaching geometric tendrils. On Defense Station Sejong, the crew made final preparations. The railgun needed an enormous amount of power to fire, more than the station's reactor could safely provide. They had rigged additional power cells from every system they could strip, routing everything into the weapon. When they fired, the station would be left with barely enough energy for life support. We're going to be sitting ducks after this, Taemin said. We're dead anyway if it doesn't work, Lee replied. Yuna, how's our targeting solution? The young engineer worked her console with steady hands. The main construct is too large to destroy with a single shot, even if our weapon works. But I've identified what I think is the central processing core. It's deep inside the structure, but there's a path through. We'll need to thread the needle between 7 layers of probe clusters. How precise are we talking? Within 3 meters at a distance of 600,000 kilometers. Taemin whistled. That's impossible. It's necessary, Yuna corrected. And I can make the shot. Minji checked her calculations one more time. The quantum field was holding stable around the projectile, but it was fragile. Any miscalibration could collapse the inversion pattern, and they would just be firing a regular railgun shot that would feed the Devourers more energy. We need to fire before the construct reaches Mars orbit, she said. After that, the probes will be too dense. We'll never get through, Lee nodded. Then we do it now. All hands, battle stations. Prepare to fire on my mark. The station's alarms rang throughout the facility. Non-essential personnel moved to the reinforced core sections. The few remaining shuttles undocked and moved to minimum safe distance. Everyone knew this was a one-way shot. Taemin took his position at the main control console. His hands moved across the interface with practiced precision, bringing the railgun systems online. Power levels climbed steadily toward maximum. The quantum field generators hummed, their output visible as rippling distortions in space around the barrel. Yuna fed the targeting data into the fire control system. The shot required perfect timing. The construct was moving, the probes were shifting, and space itself was being warped by the Devourer's presence. She had to calculate not just where the core was now, but where it would be 6.3 seconds from now when the projectile arrived. Capacitors charging, Minji reported. Quantum field stable, power at 60%. Kim Sora saw the station's power signature spike on her instruments. She knew what it meant. All fighters clear the firing corridor. Move, move, move! Her squadron scattered as the station's railgun began to glow. The quantum field was now visible to the naked eye, a shimmer of impossible colors that hurt to look at directly. Power at 80%, Minji called out. Quantum inversion holding. Taman watched the main construct on his display. It was massive and terrible, a mathematical impossibility made physical. The probes surrounding it numbered in the thousands now, each one consuming matter and growing. He thought about Earth behind them, about the billions of people who would die if this failed. Power at 95%, field generators at maximum output. Yuna double-checked her targeting one final time. The path was clear. The timing was perfect. The shot was possible. Target locked, she confirmed. Captain Lee looked around the control room at his crew. These people had become his family over the years. They had built something amazing together. Now they were gambling everything on one shot, one chance to prove that humanity could face the darkness and not blink. Power at 100%, Minji announced. All systems ready. We are clear to fire. Lee took a breath. In his mind, he saw his daughter on Earth, safe in a bunker with her mother. He had recorded a message for her just in case. It talked about courage and sacrifice and how some things were worth dying for. He hoped she would understand. Fire, he ordered. The railgun discharged with a burst of light that painted the solar system in colors that had no name. The station shuddered so hard that several people were thrown from their seats. The quantum field collapsed around the projectile as it left the barrel, but the inversion pattern was already imprinted on the tungsten slug. The projectile accelerated to 30% of light speed in less than 1 second. It tore through space, leaving a trail of distorted reality behind it. On Earth, people saw a line of light stretch across the sky. In deep space, coalition sensors registered a subspace signature they had never seen before. The 6.3 seconds it took for the projectile to cross the distance felt like hours. Taman watched the targeting display, seeing the path through the probe clusters, seeing the tiny window toward the core. The math said it would work. The math said the shot was true. But math did not account for hope or fear or the desperate prayers of billions. The projectile entered the outer layer of probes. They tried to intercept it, tried to absorb it like they had absorbed everything else. But when they touched the quantum field surrounding the tungsten slug, something different happened. The probes began to shake. Their geometric patterns became unstable, and instead of absorbing the projectile, they shattered. The path opened. The projectile flew deeper into the construct, through layer after layer, each one collapsing as it passed. And finally, 6.3 seconds after firing, the tungsten slug hit the central processing core. Nothing happened for 1 full second. Then everything happened at once. The Devourer construct began to scream, not with sound, because sound cannot travel in space, but with energy across every spectrum. Every sensor in the solar system registered the disturbance as the inverted quantum field spread through the structure like poison through a bloodstream. Park. Taman watched in disbelief as the geometric nightmare began to tear itself apart. The probes that had been spreading through the system suddenly reversed course, drawn back toward the central mass. But instead of joining together, they collided and destroyed each other. The quantum inversion was working like a virus, turning the Devourer's own technology against itself. It's working, Dr. Han Minji whispered, her voice filled with wonder and terror. The inverted frequency is making them consume themselves instead of external matter. Shin Yuna was recording everything, her fingers flying across her console. The cascade is exponential. Every probe that returns to the main construct spreads the inversion further. They can't stop it. Captain Lee Donghyun allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. They had actually done it. All stations status report. Did we survive the firing? The responses came in from around the damaged station. Several sections had lost power completely. The reactor was operating at barely 10% capacity. Life support was working but strained. But they were alive. Captain, I have communication from Earth Command, the comm officer reported. They're asking for confirmation of weapon effectiveness. Tell them the target is neutralized, Lee replied. The Devourers are destroying themselves. In space around Mars, Kim Sora watched as the probes that had been chasing her suddenly stopped. They hovered motionless for 3 seconds, then began moving erratically. One slammed into Mars's surface, creating a massive crater. Others flew away at random angles, colliding with asteroids and each other. The disciplined swarm had become complete chaos. All fighters maintain distance, she ordered. Let them tear themselves apart. On Earth, billions watched through telescopes and broadcast feeds as the Devourer construct imploded. The massive structure that had consumed 3 moons and threatened all life in the solar system was collapsing into itself. Geometric patterns broke down into random shapes. The dark energy that had powered it was dissipating into space. Ambassador Kang Hyun-soo stood in the command center, watching the same feeds with tears streaming down his face. Around him, hardened military officers and politicians were openly crying or laughing, or simply sitting in stunned silence. They had expected to die. They had prepared farewell messages and made peace with the end. Instead, they had won. The coalition ships at the edge of the system were broadcasting in dozens of languages, their messages all saying variations of the same thing. Impossible. It was impossible. No species had ever defeated the Devourers. No weapon had ever harmed them. The coalition's oldest fear, the nightmare that had shaped their civilization for millions of years, was dying before their sensors. The mechanical alien from Geneva sent a direct message to Defense Station Sejong. When it spoke, its usually monotone voice carried something like emotion. You have changed everything. You have done what we believed could not be done. Humanity has given the galaxy hope. But Taemin was not celebrating. He was staring at Minji's sensor data with growing concern. The inversion cascade is still spreading. It's not stopping at the construct. Minji looked up from her console, her expression shifting from joy to worry. The quantum signature is propagating through subspace. It's following the same paths that the original Devourer call used. What does that mean? Lee asked. It means we just broadcast a weapon across multiple star systems. Every Devourer construct within 200 light-years just felt this. Yuna pulled up a simulation. The inverted frequency will hit any Devourer signature in range within hours. If there are other constructs out there, they'll experience the same cascade failure, Taemin finished. We didn't just stop one attack. We created a weapon that propagates itself through subspace. The implications were staggering. For millions of years, the Devourers had been an unstoppable force. Now in one shot, humanity had potentially crippled every construct in this region of the galaxy, but they had also announced themselves in the most dramatic way possible. Over the next 6 hours, coalition sensors confirmed Taemin's theory. Devourer signatures across nearby star systems were winking out. Some collapsed like the construct near Earth. Others simply vanished, their quantum coherence destroyed by the inverted frequency. The weapon was spreading across light years, carried by the same subspace medium the Devourers used to communicate. But something else was happening too. Deep in the void beyond the galaxy's edge, ancient sensors were detecting the quantum disruption. The Devourers were not a single entity or even a simple species. They were a distributed intelligence, fragments of something older and larger than any organic civilization. The constructs in this region were merely scouts, small pieces of a much greater whole, and that greater whole had just felt pain for the first time in eons. Captain Lee's crew worked frantically to restore the station's power. They had survived the firing, but just barely. The reactor needed major repairs, and they were running on emergency reserves. The coalition offered assistance, and for the first time, alien engineers worked side by side with humans in genuine partnership rather than oversight. Park Taemin found a quiet moment to contact Earth. His hands shook as he made the call. Exhaustion and adrenaline finally catching up with him. Dr. Han Minji appeared on the screen, looking just as tired. We did something incredible and possibly terrible, he said without preamble. I know, she replied. The inverted frequency is still propagating. We can't stop it. Every Devourer construct within range is being affected. The Coalition is calling it the most significant military development in galactic history. They want full access to our research. They want to build more railguns, deploy the inverted frequency across the entire galaxy. Minji was quiet for a moment. And do you trust them with that? I don't know, Taemin admitted. A week ago they were demanding we dismantle our weapons. Now they want to mass produce them. People change when they see a threat can be defeated rather than just avoided. On Earth, the celebrations were beginning. Cities erupted in spontaneous parties. People who had been hiding in bunkers emerged to find the sky still above them, the sun still shining. Humanity had not just survived first contact with a hostile alien force. They had won. But in government buildings and military headquarters, the conversations were more serious. They had seen how quickly the Coalition's attitude had changed. Fear had turned to respect, but respect could easily turn to something else. Humanity now possessed the most powerful weapon in known space, and that made them both valuable and dangerous. Ambassador Kang received an official communication from the Coalition Council. It was an invitation to join them as full members, with all rights and responsibilities. Humanity would be the youngest species in the Coalition by millennia, but they would have equal voting power on major decisions. They want our weapons, Choi Sung-ho said bluntly when Kang showed him the message. They want to study the railgun, reverse engineer it, make it standard across their fleets. Can we refuse? Kang asked. Can we afford to? We just killed Devourer constructs across dozens of star systems. What happens when the rest of them realize what we did? What happens when they come back, but this time in force? 6 months later, Defense Station Sejong had been rebuilt and expanded. It was now the headquarters of a joint human coalition defense initiative. The original railgun had been carefully deconstructed and studied. Dozens of similar weapons were under construction across human and alien space. Commander Park Taemin stood in the observation deck of the new station, looking out at a fleet of warships unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human efficiency combined with alien technology, all built around the principles of the inverted quantum field. They called them breaker ships, designed specifically to combat the Devourers if they returned. Dr. Han Minji joined him, no longer just a scientist but the chief technical officer of the Joint Defense Program. The Coalition voted today. Humanity is officially the 47th member species. We get 2 seats on the council. That's more than most species, Taemin observed. We earned it. We gave them something they'd lost, something more valuable than technology or territory. We gave them courage. Kim Sora walked past the observation deck window in her new uniform. She had been promoted to commander, and now led the first integrated squadron of human and alien pilots. They trained together, learned from each other, prepared for a threat that might never come again. But Shin Yuna was worried. She worked in the station's research labs analyzing data from the original fight. She had discovered something troubling in the quantum signatures. The Devourer construct they had destroyed was not fully destroyed. Its matter had been scattered, but its information had been preserved somehow, encoded in the quantum foam of space itself. She brought her findings to Captain Lee, who was now Admiral Lee, in charge of all human defense forces. He listened carefully to her explanation, his expression growing more serious with each word. So they learn, he said. They experience the inverted frequency once. They'll adapt to it,